Hi everybody, it's Patrick from Inside Motorcycles, and we're here with Colin Fraser, who introducing all of him would take me forever with all of his accomplishments, but longest running from the beginning of Inside Motorcycles, columnist, the man behind CSBK and road racing in Canada, and very much deserved a recent inductee to the Canadian Motorcycle Hall of Fame. Colin Fraser.
That's me.
How
All
are
true.
you?
I confess.
How are you doing?
I am doing well. It's excited to be freezing here in the show.
Yes, you did something to somebody that we're here.
Well, they could just shut one of the doors, but whatever.
Well, let's talk about what you're up to, because I know there was a press release during last year that Professional Motorsport Productions, which is your company,
Right.
had been sold.
Was my company.
Was your company and was behind CSBK, was sold. So tell us what you're up to now.
Well, a lot of the same. I'm doing more work on the television, TSN video side of things, because we've grown a fair bit on that side in the last few years. So COVID and Formula One's drive to survive and TSN's relationship with Formula One has made them much bigger consumers of motorsport. So Drive to Survive is the high tide that raised all the boats that are motorsport. So that has been terrific. We're very lucky that we did well in COVID, well enough to leverage our relationship with TSN. So I've been working on those kinds of things, and I got a new knee and I went into the Hall of Fame. So I have actually been fairly busy, although some of my being busy has been stuck riding my stationary bicycle.
Cool. On the subject of CSBK, what's coming up this year that's new or big in CSBK?
Well, I think at this time of year, you're always wondering what's going to happen, because racing is very hard to predict and you don't really know for sure what's going to turn up on the grid. We're here with Ben Young's BMW. I'm pretty comfortable it'll have the #1 plate and he'll be back to defend. Most of the interest right now is on our first trip out west in 8 years. The last time we were out west was in 2015, and that was at what is now Rad Torque, was then Castrol Raceway, which is just sort of beside the airport and south of the city of Edmonton. So it's a really terrific location for a facility. We have raced there before. Obviously, you never ever want to go to a place once. You want to dig in and invest and build the event. So we have done some preparation there. The club is very strong there. There's another track theoretically coming online south of there, closer to Calgary. So there's a lot of things going on in Alberta, and Alberta has typically been our stronghold. The first ever Canadian Superbike National was in Edmonton in 1980, so
Cool.
not a track that I think is all housing now, but
Yeah,
nonetheless, that was where we were.
Yeah. So not to put you on the spot, but I will. Let's have some predictions for the upcoming year. Is the #1 plate going to stay on here, or is someone going to maybe move it?
Well, I think as you get older, you become more conservative in your views, and certainly Ben Young was very strong last season. This bike is a built in Germany Alpha Technic bike, so it's a high level of machine, and there aren't that many machines of that level in Canada. There's a few, so I think Ben is a very strong rider. We saw that at Daytona last year. We'll see it at Daytona in a couple of weeks. So I think he's going to be hard to beat if everything plays out. Now, you can be your own worst enemy. That can happen. I think the interest, as has been the case for the last few years, is in the middleweight class, because we've tweaked the rules there. It's always been a category with much less precedent, mostly because the young guys come through there, right? And you never know what you're going to get weekend, even day to day sometimes. Yeah. So we've had an unprecedented string of different winners in what I'm calling middleweight, pro sport bike. Some people call it 600 super sport, whatever it is. And of course, in the greater world of motorsport, that category has had a very large loosening of the structure of the rules, because a lot of the traditional Japanese 600cc four-cylinder bikes don't exist or are much harder to get. So other bikes, particularly Ducati's V-Twin, are now predominant. It won the title down in the States. We had some victories for that bike in Canada, but most interesting is the allowance for the GSXR 750 restricted to some degree to compete in a class which used to be the GSXR 600 class.
Right.
And of course, the GSXR 750 used to be a pinnacle superbike. Now it's a middleweight bike, so things have evolved significantly. Last year, Sebastian Tremblay left Kawasaki, said he was retiring, came to Shannonville to help somebody. Turned out he's still addicted, poor guy. decided to come back, got some help from Suzuki Canada, raced a GSXR 600 with quite a bit of success, and then switched to the GSXR 750 because the rules permitted that at the very end of the season at Shannonville. Immediately was the guy to beat as expected. So I think as much as I'm expecting the unexpected in pro sport bike, I also think it's a bad decision to bet against Sebastian Tremblay, but a ton of pressure on him because everyone thinks he's the guy to beat.
Okay.
In the 600 class.
And then there's a couple new, we've got Kawasaki's got a spec class coming in this year.
Right, so the two different versions of the 400 four-cylinder, which is, we used to consider a Japanese gray market kind of motorcycle, and that harkens back a long time to the late 80s when the Yamaha's FZR 400, an aluminum frame inline 4, and in the old days, there was a very big class in Japan for production racing, which was 250 two-cylinder 2-strokes and aluminum frame 4-cylinder 4-strokes, and this Kawasaki is kind of a remnant of that era. But what's interesting about this is, and if you go online and start reading, you're going to hit this in the first sentence, is de-restricting it turns it into a 75-ish horsepower motorcycle with a lot of mid-range, and obviously it likes to rev. It's an inline 4. So a bike that you could say is really a bike that you would like to ride on a racetrack. It's definitely, it's a nice street bike. It's a good package, and Kawasaki make a shockingly large number of very flexible and useful middleweights. But it de-restricted, I think, will definitely be a bike that people remember. And I think it's a great idea. The only concern I have is because it's a brand new bike, there aren't a lot of them around yet, and of course the dealers can't get enough. So it's great for me to say you should race your brand new street bike, but you maybe still want to ride it to the coffee shop a couple of times.
Absolutely. And then last thing, CSBK, King of the Baggers, or a bagger is going to run at Mossport?
Yeah, so there's two bagger series. There's the one you hear about the most, which has, in my opinion, turned into Harley versus Indian at an extremely high spec. They're traveling that series this year, so it'll start in Daytona, but it's racing in Europe, primarily in the UK. The bagger series we're involved with, which is the Bagger League, originally started as part of that, and as often happens with success, they splintered. So that is the category we're getting. So we're getting something that is baggers, but it isn't necessarily the one you might have watched on television from the United States. So we're foot in the water at Mossport in August. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in baggers. To me, it's a bizarre form of road racing because it's the most expensive motorcycle on the track at the moment. So we have an idea of how built a race bike is, and these bikes aren't that built anymore, in as much as the way they come originally doesn't require a great deal of attention.
Right.
That is not the case for a bagger, right? A transmission for a bagger could easily be $40,000 or $50,000. So I think they're exciting. I think Mossport will suit them as a venue, and having the Americans come out, they may be a little surprised about what Mossport's like, because it's a pretty daunting place. But I think August at Mossport, our biggest race of the year, the bagger should be a good fit, and I think you got to get your foot in the door. We need to start. We need to walk before we run. So hopefully we have a good start with the baggers, attract some people who maybe haven't been coming out, and put on a show that people aren't expecting.
Very cool. Well, Colin, thank you for your time, and be sure everyone to keep going to InsideMotorcycles.com to read what's up with Colin. Thanks a lot.